All right. Okay, good.
Okay. Good. Then, yeah, let's start with maybe first. Should we again summarize like the most important points?
Um, Everyone read the PPT, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can just start with the questions, discussing questions.
Okay. Then you can go ahead, I guess.
All right. Let me. Oh, so Nizu, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Oh, wait a minute, please. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just
I
fine.
mean,
Yeah.
Minzu has a little bit trouble. All right. So, first question, the question is, what lesson can be learned from the history of Taft-Kira Agreement in 1905? 혹시 마이크 음소 좀. All right, got it. So let me ask to Korean students first. Hanger, what do you think about it?
Actually, like Taft-Castro agreement is like U.S. secretly admit Japan's control over Korean Peninsula, and Japan also secretly admit the U.S. controls over the Philippines, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So from this one, I think we can learn, but we can learn. I'm not really sure, and it's like really just simple one, but I think like countries' power should be really way stronger. It have to be strong because when it was like 1905, Joseon was really weak, and they don't have country power, so they can't do anything while like Japan and US are like talking about it. And so I think from this agreement we have to learn every country have to make more power to save their own country. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we have to learn. Yeah.
All right. I think that's really similar with me because the first thought that I did was we need to prepare to protect myself and
Yeah,
get
that's right.
power. So there's no one who helps you. You have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. And
every country have to be like self-defense.
Yeah, self-defense ability. So
Yeah.
the main point of this agreement is because of the imbalance of countries' power, I think. So all right, this time, what about Hyunsop? What do you think about it?
Okay, I felt that through the Taft-Kosura agreement, I think U.S. justified the colonization of Korea by making this agreement. And also, I also felt that weak countries like Philippines and Joseon at that time were treated as a commercial product in market because U.S. and Japan they don't really matter the situation in Philippines and Joseon at that time. They just go have a conversation between U.S. and Japan.
Yeah.
That was my.
All right. So they made a decision without Philippine and Joseon, right? So, all right.
Okay, so maybe I can say something about that as well.
Mm.
So I don't think a lot of people in the West know about this agreement. Obviously, this is very, very important for Korean history. And the thing is, the US got involved in so many different areas in the world that it's sometimes it's hard to keep track where they have meddled, where they intervened. And this, as our professor wrote in his PPT, a lot of people in Korea still like cite this as a reason why the US is not trustworthy. And I guess it comes back to this topic that we discussed in the last 2 weeks, which is this realism versus liberalism. So the liberalism would have been to help each other, to support each other, even though if one state is weak, no one should take advantage of that and just attack them. But obviously, as we can see from this agreement from 1905, realism was obviously more important, I guess, or they just went with it because they just did what they could. So they didn't really think about what would happen to the people in the Philippines or in Korea. They just made this agreement about other countries without those other countries saying yes or no. Obviously, they would have said no, but you know what I mean. So it's just this, yeah, it shows that realism back then was definitely the main policy because they had the power to do what they wanted and they decided to just go for it. And yeah, the catastrophe followed, basically.
Like as for me, like what can be learned from this history? It can be learned that nobody can trust nobody. Like you can trust anyone because they always can like they can always like make you a victim for their own goals, so private goals for themselves, and they don't want to lose their power, and of course they will be like scared to lose it. And like maybe US like they didn't want it to be like to be enemies with Japan because they saw that Japan is growing. They like after major reforms they became more strong, more powerful, and they didn't want it to like have an enemy like Japan after like wars. They had war with Russia and like other wars, and just saw that Japan has a strong power, and it was like it was more useful for them to make this agreement to like to give Korea like a victim for their own private goals, for their protection. And as they mentioned before, like realism, it's realism, and we can see how liberalism in such cases just like becomes an utopia for us, because everyone's like just thoughts about themselves, not more.
All right. So is there anyone who wanna talk about this more? Maybe Diego?
Yeah, it's the same for me that you can even you can trust even the ones who claims that can protect you because it can also destroy you, as it destroyed the past two like governing states, as it was the Russians and the Chinese people. And it was also something very interesting that I found out in the slides, that it says like either the Japanese people try to homogenize with the Korean people, or try to crush them, like the resistance, and they do both. That was like quite breathtaking, as it tried to also erase all type of Korean culture, as it was the language, even the names. They tried to both change to Japanese names, and but also by like being really how to say it, like having a very bad treat against the Korean people, even though they were like already submissive to them. Well, kinda, because there were also like group of resistance, but they also didn't pay much respect for them, as by the beginning they said they claim like to be the protector of the Korean society, but it was like a lie, you know.
What I want to add to this point, Diego, which is very excellent, I think, is that throughout history, most colonizers, or maybe all colonizers, they didn't say, oh, we're going to colonize this place, we're going to colonize that country. They always started off by saying something like, oh, we're just going to share our wealth and our knowledge and our technology with them. Like, I think that's the same thing they did to the Americas, when the British and the French and everyone, and the Spanish, of course, especially. Like the Spanish also thought of people who lived in the Americas as like savages, and that they needed also religion to be good people.
Sure.
And I think like in the case with Korea, yeah, they maybe they framed it that way, that they just wanted to like protect them or whatever, but they wanted to own the place. They wanted to do to the people what they wanted, to the women especially, and yeah, so that's that. Anyone want to add to this? So maybe just to summarize, what lesson can be learned from the history of this agreement? Well, it's not a very nice lesson, of course, but it's just basically trusting people or trusting other nations is very hard. You always have to be careful about what their true interests are, I guess, is what all of you said. If you combine it in one sentence, I think. Good.
You know
And
what?
maybe
Maybe I
yes,
can add
please.
something, because it was like very dangerous for Korea to treat to make like an agreement with the country who's trying to grow by means of colonization terms, and either it was also very dangerous for Korea to be very close to the wall, because in that way they didn't have any more allies like other countries, as maybe just suppose that maybe France could have support, or no, the Britons could have support Korea against the Japanese conquerors, or maybe also the Americans as well. Not only like at the end of the World War II, that they like kind of helped them, ending with the Japanese colonization by throwing the bomb to Japan. But maybe it was also very critical for Korea to be very close in that way. They didn't have like any other way to ask for help, so they decide to agree with the Japanese people to sign the craft. Well, I don't know, remember the name, sorry, but the agreement that we are talking about. So that is also very critical for them.
Well, about the thing, like agreeing to this treatment with Japan, as our professor had explained this in his PPT, it wasn't exactly that the Korean king or president, or what, that the top of state just signed an agreement and was just okay with that. It's basically the last king was kind of forced to make his son the new king, and then he was tricked into signing this agreement. And about Korea and Japan, I mean, this is not the only time Korea had conflict with Japan. Unfortunately, because of Korea's location, it had been attacked by all its neighbors, basically, as far as I know. Like so many conflicts with the Chinese, so many conflicts also with like the Manchurians and like the Russians, and also with the Japanese already in like, wasn't it in like 16th century when there were the invasions, and that was also like the first time that Korea suffered great cultural loss. Actually, like I learned at university that so many cultural goods from Korea, especially like porcelain, pottery, art, and stuff like that, got lost because of these invasions by the Japanese a few hundred years earlier. And then this at the beginning of the 20th century, so 1905 with the agreement, that was just like one step further. So like the first time that Japan like really gained control over the country and then tried to colonize them. Was that a correct summary? Just asking the Korean students. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So good. I think you know a lot of Korean history. So I'm glad that.
I tried to read a lot about it before I came here.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know. I think it's kind of weird if you live in a country for a year and you don't know anything about the history. I'd feel a bit stupid. I don't know. Okay.
That's great.
Should we move on to the second question? Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let me read it out again. So it says, number 2, what should be done by civil society? So both in Korea and Japan, for a genuine reconciliation between South Korea and Japan. So what should be done by civil society so that South Korea and Japan can get like closer again? Because obviously this, agreement and everything, the bad history still, people still think about that. What do you guys think? I'm very curious to hear.
So as a Korean, this is a little bit hard to say, but the Japan and Korea, South Korea, it's connected from a really, really long time ago. So it is only short time of colony, but also as you said, the invasion has begun was like 100 years ago and 1,000 years ago. So we're living in now, so it doesn't. Some people might think that history is not a big deal to reconciliation because we're living in now and the history is back then. But like I don't know. What was I going to say? So I just watched a video of Germany just before this class this June, and I forgot her name. Sorry, but the secretary. Who was she?
Do you mean Angela Merkel?
Oh yeah, that's right. She just visited. I'm really sorry. So she just visited Israel to say sorry again before she retired, and like, I think that kind of movement should be happening in Japan, because I'm Korean, and so just saying sorry might be not enough, but at least they have to try to say sorry. and like not just about some kind of money, giving money, or yeah, not just like that, but also they're deep in mind. I just want them to say sorry and feel sorry about it, or the things like especially World War II and Japan colony like that. Yeah, all right, that's all I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is very reasonable, I guess, because I mean, I don't know what it feels like because I'm not Korean or not part of another country that has like had a similar experience. But I think I've mentioned this a couple times now. So my parents are from Turkey, and for example, Armenia, a lot of Armenians actually hate Turkish people a lot because they think of us the same way as Koreans think of Japan. So maybe it was not the same thing, but to them, it doesn't matter. They just want Turkish people also to um, just accept what happened because the Turkish government, for example, does not recognize what they did to the Armenians. And I think in Japan, it's very similar. Um, and if I understand, like people say, oh, you have to move on from the past, it's so long ago. But I understand that if you have been wronged, that you want to feel justice, like you need this justice. You know, you want people to acknowledge this happened, this we did this,
Yeah,
and it was wrong, and then we can try to move on. But if you just like if something like this happens, something so horrible, and people don't even acknowledge that it happened, but they try to make it seem like it never happened,
yeah,
that I can only try to understand what that must feel like. So that's horrible.
and yeah, and just one thing that I want to talk about more is the question was what should be done, right? And my answer is it should be started from the education in Japan. Just maybe you guys know about it, but the history education in Japan is a little bit different from what we learn in Korea. So it's hard to say, but I can say that they changed it, the truth, the history, and they're telling the wrong stories about history. And they're doing education to young kids, young people, young Japanese. And when they grow up, they just think like that the wrong way. So I just think that the education should be corrected to telling the true history, and the young Japanese new generation should know about it. And when when they know about it, when they know the truth and they admit what they did, what happened, I think that's the first step of doing reconciliation between Korea and Japan. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Bomin a lot, and like almost of Koreans don't like Japanese, and that's kind of like true. So like I think like what Bomin said, this is not like what government will do or like that. This is just what should be done by civil society. So I think civil society can do like Bomi said, better education, like knowing like exactly right history is, I think, very important. But like Bomi said, history is like kind of distorting. So each country and every country have to teach like exact like true, yeah, like so I think civil society can like Korea and Japan each country's civil society can, maybe they can like help each other and make kind of like better history like textbook or something like that, so they can make like truth, and so that each country's students and young people can know about what is right. And of course, as Korean, I really hope like Japanese or like government are like feel really sorry about it, and they have to say sorry to all of like all of peoples who got really a bad effect from that colony. So like for example, like Japanese military sector slavery, like that. Yeah, so like civil society can like also they can do like something like campaign for I think there is like civil society that go to Japan and tell truth to Japanese, and they want to become like more closer like that. So I think like we have to try a lot of things like that. I didn't like really summarize it, so it was like
That's fine.
yeah. Yeah, sorry about it.
I mean, you can just say that we just want them to admit what they did, like an example of Germany, right?
Yeah, kind of like that. That's important.
Yeah. So I'm a little curious how we're Koreans, we have 4 Korean students here, 5, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just want to ask how the other countries students think about it, because we're yeah, all right.
Like as for me, I agree with you guys, but like Japanese people and of course government like should feel sorry, and they should accept their fault. Firstly, they should accept it and say, yes, it's our fault, it was a mistake, and it's not something that they can like buy with money. Of course they can buy government, but they can buy like people, society, like Korean society. They will always remember about it, because they like don't feel sorry and don't do some actions like steps to have like a reconciliation with South Korea. And in my opinion, it's because like Bomin said, their history don't talk them like it's in your country. They don't know like how it was. They just was go on the other history, and they can't understand it. And of course, as I think like now Japanese generation, of course they don't know, and they didn't feel like something like your felt maybe when you like read your history. And of course they cannot be responsible for actions of like people who was alive 100 years ago, but they can be more like tolerant, and they can make steps towards like Korean people, maybe some events, maybe some actions to like to help, to protect, to like to show what they feel sorry for their all the generations. Of course, it's not their responsibility, but they can do it for like for reconciliation between like South Korea and Japan. But of course, as for me, it comes from government. If government will accept their fault, the society will understand what they had a fault in the past. Now they just don't understand this. They don't know this because their history like don't teach them about it. They said that we are the winners. We just tried to make Korea more modern, more good country. We try to help them. They like show this case like that. Of course, it's wrong, but we can't we can't blame them for this because it's not their fault. It's just.
Yeah, thanks. And all right, I just want to ask to Minsu because he didn't say anything today. So yeah, so what do you think about it? Second question. Your mic is muted. No mic. There's no mic. All right. Sorry. Okay. Should I keep going? What about you, Hyunsuk?
I think the Korean people think about Japanese in negative way is partially for media. When some events happen in Japan, Korea media deliver the message to the news or newspaper in strong expression or very negative way, so that they can carry some Koreans' emotion, and they want to, they want to be more focused on not the fact, but the Japanese did something that is bad. So I think the media should really focus on the truth, not the
Emotion things, right?
Yeah, emotion.
Yeah. So Diego, you want to say something? Oh, right, sorry.
So no, it's okay. I just wanted to say I had a bad connection for a few minutes, so I don't know what I missed, but maybe someone has already said this before. But as you pointed out, this question is about like what the civil society can do, and I think actually in our day and age, through social media, actually, stuff like that gets more and more importance and more recognition. For example, if there's like a problem in the world, then some people will maybe start a social media campaign, and lots of people retweet it or repost the picture and share it with their friends, and it gets more and more attention. For example, when it comes to this minority in China, the Uyghurs that get treated badly by the Chinese government. In the last 2 years or so, a lot of attention was drawn to that subject because of Instagram, because of other social media platforms, TikTok, for example, too. And I think every now and then I see something about that when it comes to Korean history, not just when it comes to Korea's international relations, but also, for example, with the tragedy with the Sewol ferry that was a few years ago. Every time around when the day comes in the year, you will see posts on social media and people will, repost it. And when it comes to like the colonization of Korea by the Japanese, I think if more people maybe would start a campaign like this, or more people would repost it, then eventually more people in Japan would also see it. I don't know what kind of social media they prefer in Japan, but let's say it's Instagram. So if there was more content in Instagram, then maybe more Japanese people who didn't learn this in school would be confronted with this through Instagram. And then, of course, there will be people who will see this and get angry and say, like, this is not what our teachers told us. This is not correct. But a lot of also other people will also think, wait a minute, maybe I should read something more about this. Maybe something like books or something that's not from Japan, but from outside, where there's other information. Because history education in school is never very neutral. I don't know if you can really tell history without with being completely neutral, but obviously what Japan does is not correct. And yeah, so social media campaigns in our age group is works really well. I think it also worked really well with the climate change, and you know, it gained a lot of attention amongst younger people in the last few years. So yeah. So I don't know if you had mentioned something about this, but I just wanted to say this now. Yeah.
That's new ideas.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, for me, I want to add something very important, as we already stated that also a very important part of the society is education. And you said like if it will be better if we, like the Japanese, learn like some of the like real facts. So I was thinking about like maybe in Korea and Japanese education system will like work together in order to maybe like influence more on the future of the countries, as the young people is the future of the country, you know. So like maybe like having some more links between universities, so the, like for example, the Japanese people can deep more into the Korean culture and history, and you know that to maybe know like the perception or the point of view of the Korean people for what like the Japanese did to their society in the past. So like they can gain some real knowledge that it wasn't acquired in their home country, as it is Japan. They don't like, I don't know if they don't really like tell even the story of like the Japanese were the bad people in Korea, and so it will be better, or it will be a good idea to have Japanese people living in their own life, some of the Korean history in their education, so like it can start by where, well, something will be, it's meant to begin with somewhere. So like education in this way can be a good way to start Japanese people knowing the point of view of the Korean people of what happened in the past. So that may be very good. I don't know.
That's great. Know each other's point of view. I think Korean also should know about the Japanese point of view, and Japanese should know about Korean's point of view. I think that's great. I just been to just textiles. It can be seen that Japan has done a lot of wrong in process of dominating Korea, and until recently, it has admitted it's wrong and apologized. I think it's good to get along well with each other. So I think it's good to develop with each other through various exchanges with Japan. But I just want to say that Japan is most close country to Korea as culture. Like there's China, Korea, and Japan, three countries. These three are all connected, and especially Japan is more connected to Korea. I think I don't know if you guys agree, but so we have a lot of exchanges. As like Koreans love to go Japan, go travel, go trip on Japan, and just look around the Japan's cultures. And Korea and Japan, I believe Japan also love to come to Korea because of K-pop and other cultures. So I think we have to keep this kind of exchanges a lot. And if we get more interested to each other's country, is as an individual or society or like university connection, as you said, Diego, like that. I think if we keep doing that and we do it a lot more, they get interest a lot, and someday somehow they try to like correct something wrong or get the facts, find out the facts like that by new generations like us, like that young guys. So yeah, and that's good. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I also think that's a good point because it's like a very different way that what I suggested. I suggested doing like reaching this goal by being direct about everything and like addressing ugly topics maybe. And what you two like what you just suggested was actually really nice because it's rather than going this like direct way, which maybe it's just my German mindset, I don't know. Going a more like in more of a nice way, you know, first just let's just get closer by sharing our cultural goods like you just mentioned. I've heard from so many Korean people that they have traveled to Japan because you know there aren't that many countries around, so it's the closest one. You can go there very easily and people enjoy themselves there a lot. And then also a lot of Japanese people, of course, like Korea, and K-pop is also very, very popular in Japan, I think. And by doing this, you know, by first being interested in a country and like maybe like just loving the culture and thinking, oh, we have this in common, oh, this word is very similar, you know, that you know that kind of binds people together. And then I think it's a lot easier to deal with the past. So yeah, I actually think what you both said was very, very nice and a beautiful way. Yeah, anyone else want to add something to that? I think I'm all out of
You can
ideas.
end it, right? Is it anyone who want to talk about more? No?
No.
All right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well then, I think actually we've had a sufficient discussion about our questions. I hope you guys are happy with our discussion today. I am very happy about that. Thank you for joining. And I think we can end this now. So thanks again, Diego, for recording. I don't think
Problem.
you need to upload it right away, but maybe only if our professor asks us.
Yeah.
Or should we maybe ask him? I don't know.